Active Oblivion is a work of historical fiction. And what I mean by that is that the events, the dates, the places, and most of the characters are real. Now, all of this provides a framework for Robert Harris to hang a novel on. The conversations and minor events are all made up. In other words, here's what might have happened to make the real events happen. Generally, I don't like historians putting words and thoughts in the minds of historical figures where there's no basis for it. But this is different. Harris isn't claiming to be any sort of scientific historian. Instead, he's trying to tell a good story about real people and real events. And he does it very well indeed. I've got to admit that prior to this, I had never read a Robert Harris book. And quite frankly, I think I've been missing out. In a few words, let me give you a synopsis of the story. In 1649, religious zealots who had gotten really cranky revolted against the king, Charles I. They deposed him, and then they executed him. They cut his head off. Like I said, they were really cranky. Now, the revolution they started only lasted 11 years. So in 1660, Charles II, who was Charles I's son, got back on the throne. And in order to get everything in England back on track and calm things down, Parliament passed a thing called an Act of Indemnity and Oblivion. What the act did was to pardon everybody who was involved one way or the other with the revolution, with the exception of the people who were directly involved in the execution of Charles I. Now, this would include something like the 100 judges at his trial and the 59 guys who signed his death warrant. And they decided to bring these people to justice. Now, that decision, in turn, launched a manhunt that went across Europe and even to North America to track down and execute these people. Okay. That's the background. The main characters in this book are actually three. The first two were two of the men who signed the death warrant. There are a couple of army colonels named Goff and Whaley. Now, these are both real historical figures. There's a third main character, and it's a guy named Richard Naylor. He is completely made up. In the book, his role is to run the manhunt and to capture all 59 of the signers of the death warrant. Whaley and Goff escape by running off to New England. This book is the story of Naylor's hunt for Whaley and Goff. Now, apart from the fact that I think I learned something about a period in English history that, quite frankly, I wasn't familiar with, there were some other things about this book that I liked a whole lot. Take, for example, the pictures that Harris paints of London, of New England, and Europe. He paints those places in really graphic detail. I also particularly liked his description of what went on in King Philip's War. Now, this was an Indian war that took place between the Puritans and local Indians in New England in the 17th century. You wouldn't know about it unless you read a history of New England, detailed history. What Harris does is not to try to cover all of that. He describes what it really like in a tiny little settlement on the edge of the wilderness in Massachusetts, a place called Hadley. Now, the book covers a lot of time. I forget the number of years, but I'll tell you, at the end of the day, it's really fast-paced. You could almost say it's a page-turner. Now, his writing is very clear, very concise, very good. And I liked it enough that I've picked up another Robert Harris book. This one is about the Louis Dreyfus affair in France. And I'm enjoying that, and I'll have a review of that sometime in the future. In the meantime, I'm very happy to recommend An Act of Oblivion. Check back in next week. I'll have another book review, and as always, I have no clue as to what it's going to be, but, well, check in and find out. See you then. Take care.